That was why, after 6 weeks of hauling refined minerals across 3 sectors, he docked his freighter Silver Dawn at Argent Spire Station, a massive trading hub that circled a blue giant star. The station wasn't as famous as the bustling capitals, but it was steady. Traders came for goods, stayed for repairs, and most importantly, minded their own business. Elias had just finished supervising the offloading of the last shipment of mineral crates when he finally allowed himself to relax. His cargo bay smelled, faintly of lubricant and metal dust, but it was empty now, save for a few tool chests and loose straps. He was already thinking about grabbing a quiet meal at Dockside Cafe. That was when he heard a voice behind him. A deep, slightly rasping voice with a tone that suggested it was about to deliver a question no one expected. "Human," it said. "Do you have a mate yet?" Elias turned, half expecting to see an old crewmate making a joke. Instead, he found himself staring at a tall alien with bronze-scaled skin and an angular, predatory face. The alien's yellow eyes blinked in slow, deliberate intervals, and his jaw flexed like he was sizing up a rival. The alien wore a vest of dark leather reinforced with steel plates, and a ceremonial blade hung from his belt. His tail swayed lazily behind him, but his posture was rigid, as if he stood in front of a commander. Elias blinked. "Pardon?" The alien stepped closer, his talons clicking lightly against the cargo bay floor. "Do you have a mate?" he repeated, enunciating each word carefully, as though speaking to someone who might not understand. Elias took a moment to process the question. In his 38 years, he had been asked a variety of things at ports. Where to find fuel. Whether he was selling weapons, if he could smuggle someone's cousin past customs, but this was a first. "I can't say I do," Elias replied cautiously. The alien's posture straightened further, and his tail flicked once in apparent satisfaction. "Excellent. Then I can proceed. My name is Karan of the Zarketh warrior clan Tavar. My mother bakes the finest battle bread in this sector and has slain 32 confirmed pirate raiders. You must take her as your wife." Elias stared at him. "What?" Karan's voice carried the certainty of someone who had already decided the matter was settled. "I have seen your kind's resilience, your endurance in vacuum, your ability to adapt. These are excellent mate traits. My mother requires a partner who can withstand her training and share her victories. You are the first human I have met who appears suitable, and you do not already have a mate. This is good fortune." Elias was tempted to laugh, but Karan wasn't joking. The young warrior's expression was dead serious, his stance unwavering. "I appreciate the offer," Elias said slowly, "but I think you might be—" "Do not refuse before meeting her," Karan interrupted firmly. "In Zarketh culture, refusal without meeting the potential mate is an insult. She will challenge you in honorable combat if you insult her." Elias raised a brow. "And if I meet her and say no?" Karan's tail twitched again. "Then she will still challenge you in honorable combat, but she will be polite about it. This is better." Elias rubbed his temple. "I'm just here to drop off cargo." "Then your schedule is free," Karan declared, as if that settled the matter. "Come. My shuttle is waiting. We leave within the hour." Elias could have refused. He could have walked away, called station security, or simply gone to get his meal. But curiosity, and admittedly, the strange sense of adventure, made him hesitate. The Zarketh were known in the outer sectors as fierce warriors, but their baking traditions were something most spacers only heard rumors about, and there was something oddly endearing in Karan's blunt insistence. "All right," Elias said finally. "I'll meet her. No promises beyond that." Karan's expression didn't change much, but his voice held a hint of satisfaction. "You will not regret this." The shuttle ride from Argent Spire Station to the Zarketh homeworld took about 7 hours. Karan spent most of the trip explaining his people's customs. Zarketh society, Elias learned, placed equal value on two skills, the ability to feed the clan and the ability to protect it. Those who mastered both were considered balanced. Warriors, the highest honor in their culture. Battlebread, a dense, high-energy loaf baked with mineral-rich flour and fortified protein seeds, was a staple of their warriors. It could be eaten before battle to increase stamina or used as a hard projectile in emergencies. Karan spoke with deep pride about his mother, Jaka. She had earned her warrior status in her youth by defending a settlement from raiders, then became a baker to ensure her clan never went hungry. She could fight for hours without tiring and once baked 300 loaves in a single day during a festival. She will test you, Karan warned. But if you pass, she will be loyal until death. Jaka does not accept weak mates. Elias smirked faintly. And you think I'm not weak? You are human, Karan said simply, as if that explained everything. You survive things that kill others. You think sideways in battle. You eat food no other species dares to try. This is strength. Elias wasn't sure whether to be flattered or mildly concerned. The Zarketh homeworld, Varkor, was a harsh volcanic planet with a reddish atmosphere. Lava rivers cut across black rock plains, and massive stone fortresses dotted the horizon. The air smelled faintly of sulfur, but the locals seemed unaffected. Karan led Elias to a fortress city perched on the edge of a cooled lava plateau. The buildings were made of dark basalt, with banners depicting clan symbols. Most featured crossed weapons over a loaf of bread. Inside the main hall, heat radiated from a massive stone oven set into the far wall. The scent of fresh bread filled the space, mingling oddly with the smell of metal and oil from the weapon racks lining the room. A tall figure emerged from behind the oven door. She was broad-shouldered, with scales a deeper bronze than Karan's and eyes like molten gold. She wore a fitted set of armor decorated with clan emblems, and in one clawed hand she carried a steaming tray of freshly baked loaves. This, Elias realized, must be Jaka. Karan stepped forward proudly. Mother, I bring the human. This is Elias Vance. He is strong and adaptable. He has no mate. He will take you as his wife. Jaka's gaze swept over Elias from head to toe. She set the bread down on a stone table, then reached for a weapon hanging from the wall. A long, curved blade with a serrated back edge. You will earn the first bite, she said, her voice low and commanding. Elias raised a brow. Earn it. How? She stepped into the open space in the center of the hall. Spar with me. Show me you are not fragile. Karan clapped once, as though this were the most natural introduction in the world. Do not worry. She will not kill you if you yield. Elias sighed. Comforting. The spar lasted only a few minutes, but it felt longer. Jaka moved with surprising speed for her size, her strikes controlled yet forceful. Elias had no blade of his own, so he relied on dodging and redirecting her momentum. He wasn't a trained swordsman, but years of surviving asteroid belt brawls and station disputes had taught him to read an opponent's rhythm. At one point, Jaka swung low, and Elias stepped aside just enough to let the blade pass. Then, tapped her shoulder with his palm, a signal in some human combat sports that marked a point scored. Jaka froze, then let out a deep, rumbling laugh. She lowered her weapon and gave a short nod. You are quick. You do not waste energy. This is good. She gestured to the bread on the table. Eat. You have earned it. Elias took a slice. The bread was dense but soft inside, with a rich, earthy flavor. It was unlike anything he had tasted before, both food and fuel. Jaka watched him eat, then glanced at her son. You chose well, Karan. Elias swallowed and shook his head with a faint smile. Let's not rush into anything. I came here for bread, not a wedding. Jacques' eyes glimmered. We will see. By the end of the meal, Elias was beginning to realize that this trip might turn out far stranger and far more dangerous than he had planned. He wasn't sure whether he was in the middle of a misunderstanding, a courtship, or the start of an unexpected alliance. Elias Vance had been in strange situations before. Once, he had ferried a herd of bioengineered sheep across a quarantine zone while being chased by smugglers. Another time, he had accidentally played peace negotiator between two alien merchants, arguing over whether a crate of fruit was ripe or still plotting its revenge. But standing in the great hall of a Zarketh fortress, having just sparred with a warrior baker who also happened to be the mother of the young alien who invited him here, was a new kind of strange. Jaka, the bronze-scaled matriarch, had decided Elias was quick and not fragile, apparently high praise in her culture. She had also decided he should eat her bread immediately, which he did. Now she was pouring a steaming spiced drink into carved stone mugs. Karan stood nearby with the satisfied posture of someone who thought everything was going exactly according to plan. Human Elias, Jaka began, her voice even and deliberate. You fight with your mind more than your strength. This is good. Many warriors here use too much power and too little thought. You see openings. You use them. This means you can protect a clan. Elias took a cautious sip of the drink. It tasted like cinnamon, pepper, and something faintly metallic. I appreciate that, he said, but I'm not here to join a clan. I have a ship, a job, my own crew. Jacques leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes sharp. A clan and a ship are not enemies. They can be one. My late mate had a warship. He brought food to the front lines and fought alongside our warriors. You could do the same. Karan nodded in agreement. And the Tavar clan would give you more than any trader can. Weapons, repairs, strong fighters to guard your ship, and my mother's bread, which is better than any human ration. Elias chuckled lightly. I won't argue about the bread, the tour of the fortress. After the meal, Jacques insisted Elias see the rest of the fortress city. The Zarketh didn't believe in letting potential mates wander unseen. If he was going to understand their culture, he had to walk through it. The fortress was built like a living organism. Wide halls branched like arteries from a central gathering chamber. Training yards opened into courtyards where lava heat vents were used for cooking. Children ran along the stone corridors, some carrying wooden practice swords, others balancing trays of bread loaves as part of their learning. Elias was surprised to see how intertwined cooking and combat were. A group of young warriors trained with spears near a massive oven, taking turns between sparring rounds to knead dough. In another yard, a baker sprinkled seeds onto loaves while discussing battle tactics with an armored captain. Karan explained that in Zarketh history, food and battle were inseparable. During ancient volcanic winters, warriors had to learn to bake their own rations in the heat of battle. Over time, it became a tradition that a true warrior must feed their allies as well as fight for them. It is dishonorable, Karan said, firmly, to let your comrade go hungry, just as it is dishonorable to let them be harmed. Elias couldn't help but respect that. The market of Varkor after the fortress, they walked through the capital's market district. Stalls of volcanic, glassware, molten-forged blades, and exotic spices lined the streets. The air was thick with the smell of roasting meat and fresh bread. Elias stopped at one stall where a baker was selling small, golden-brown rolls. The baker, noticing him, smiled and handed one over. "First taste for the outsider," she said, in halting trade language. The roll was hot and crusty, with a rich, nutty flavor. Elias thanked her, and she grinned before turning to scold a young apprentice who had burned a tray. Not everyone in the market looked at Elias with open curiosity. Some glanced at him with suspicion, their tails flicking in irritation. A few muttered under their breath in their own language. Kiran leaned close to explain. Some clans do not trust outsiders. They think only Zarketh can be strong mates. But my mother is wiser. Elias filed that away. He was starting to see that this proposal wasn't just about marriage. It might have political weight. If Jaka brought a human into the clan, it would be a statement, and not everyone would approve. The kitchen challenge that evening, Jaka invited Elias into her personal kitchen. The oven here was even larger than the one in the main hall, big enough to roast an entire creature or bake dozens of loaves at once. The walls were lined with shelves of clay jars containing seeds, minerals, spices, and dried herbs. You will. Bake with me, Jaka said simply. Elias raised a brow. I'm not much of a baker. Then you will learn, she replied. A mate must share the labor. You can fight. I have seen this. Now I must see if you can feed. Elias hesitated, but soon found himself standing beside her, hands dusted with volcanic flour. She demonstrated how to knead the dough with short, powerful motions, folding it in half, pressing with the heel of her palm, and repeating until it was smooth. When Elias tried, his dough stuck to his fingers and refused to cooperate. Jaka gave him a patient look and added more flour to his work. Bread teaches patience, she said. You cannot rush it. If you fight with bread, it will fight back. By the time they slid the loaves into the oven, Elias' arms ached, but he had managed to shape something that looked at least edible. When the bread came out, golden and steaming, Jaka broke one in half, inspected the crumb, and gave a short nod. You did not ruin it. Good. Karan, who had been watching from the doorway, grinned. See, you are already becoming part of the clan. Elias shook his head, but there was a faint smile on his face. An unexpected disruption. Just as the bread was cooling, a warrior burst into the kitchen, armor still dusted with volcanic ash. Lady Jaka, he said urgently. There is trouble near the outer ridge. Raiders have been spotted. Elias straightened at the word. Pirates? The warrior nodded grimly. Fast skiffs. They have not attacked yet, but they are scouting. Jaka's expression hardened. They test our defenses. If they find weakness, they will strike. She turned to Karan. Ready the fighters. We meet them at the ridge before they grow bold. Elias felt the old pull of danger, the one that had kept him alive through more than one bad situation. Do you want help? Jaka looked at him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. You will ride with me. If you are to understand this clan, you must see how we defend it. The ride to the ridge, they rode in open-topped skimmers, fast, hovercraft that darted over the rocky plains. The air grew hotter as they neared the ridge, the ground shimmering with heat waves from lava rivers below. The fighters moved in disciplined formation, their armor glinting in the red light. At the Yas Ridge, they dismounted and moved into position. Through a viewing scope, Elias saw 3 pirate skiffs circling in the distance. They were small but armed with light cannons, enough to cause trouble for unarmed traders or settlers. Jaka gave sharp orders in her own language, and the warriors spread out, taking cover among the rocks. Elias noticed how they blended, their combat readiness with a kind of silent unity, much like a well-trained crew. When the pirates drew closer, Jaka stepped into view, weapon in hand, making no attempt to hide. It was a show of strength, a warning. The skiff slowed, the pirates clearly reconsidering. After a tense few minutes, they turned and sped away into the horizon. The warriors relaxed, but Jaka stayed alert until the last ship was gone. Then she turned to Elias. You did not flinch. Many outsiders hide when danger comes. Elias shrugged. Where I'm from, hiding usually means the trouble follows you home. Better to face it early. Jaka's eyes glimmered. Perhaps you are more Zarketh than you think. That night, back in the fortress, the clan celebrated the successful defense with a feast. Bread, roasted meat, and spiced vegetables filled the tables. Jaka sat at the head, Karan at her right, and Elias, somewhat awkwardly, at her left. The conversation was loud and filled with laughter, but Elias caught fragments of talk about him. Some warriors seemed impressed, others were skeptical. One elder muttered something that made Karan's tail lash in irritation. Elias didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. His presence here was stirring more than just curiosity. As the feast wound down, Jaka turned to Elias. "You have seen our home, our work, and our defense. You have fought me, baked with me, and stood on the ridge. Tell me, human Elias, do you still think you are only here for bread?" Elias met her gaze, and after a moment gave a small smile. "Maybe not." Jaka's expression softened ever so slightly. "Good. We will speak again soon." As Elias returned to his guest quarters that night, he realized something. This wasn't just a cultural experience. This was the beginning of a choice, one that might tie him to this clan in ways he hadn't imagined. The morning after the feast, Elias woke to the sound of distant bells. They weren't the cheerful kind used for celebrations. These were sharp, urgent, and repeating in a steady rhythm. He sat up in the small stone guest room, his mind still heavy from sleep. The sound grew louder as footsteps hurried past his door. He opened it to find a young Zarketh warrior running down the hall. "What's going on?" Elias called. The warrior paused just long enough to reply. "Outer settlement attacked. Council calls for all fighters." Then he was gone. Elias dressed quickly, pulling on the reinforced jacket he kept for dangerous ports. He'd learned long ago that trouble never waited for you to finish breakfast. The gathering hall. The great hall was alive with movement. Warriors strapped on armor, checked weapons, and exchanged quick words. The heat from the ovens mingled with the metallic smell of sharpened blades. At the center, Jaka stood in full battle gear, her bronze armor polished to a dull gleam, dual plasma axes hanging at her sides. Karan was beside her, tightening the straps on his chest plate. When Jaka saw Elias, she nodded. "You came." "I heard there's an attack. A small settlement to the south. Pirates struck before dawn. We have scouts returning with details." Her voice was calm, but her tail flicked in a slow, deliberate rhythm. A sign, Elias guessed, that she was holding back anger. Moments later, a scout hurried in and bowed to Jaka. "Lady, the raiders hit the trade storehouse and took captives. They moved toward the lava flats, likely meeting their main ships there." Elias frowned. "If they get back to their ships with supplies and prisoners, you'll have a harder time getting them back." Jaka's golden eyes narrowed. "You have an idea?" "Maybe," Elias said, glancing at the rough map carved into the table. "If they're heading for the flats, they'll have to pass through this canyon. It's narrow and winding, good for an ambush, especially if you have fighters who know the terrain." Karan's mouth curved into a grin. "Mother, I like this human's thinking." Jaka studied the map for a moment, then looked at Elias. "You will ride with us. If you are right, this canyon will be their graveyard." The ride to the canyon. They moved out in two groups. The first, a fast strike team led by Jaka, would take the ridge path and cut off the pirates' escape. The second, larger group, would block the other end of the canyon. Elias rode with Jaka in a skimmer, the wind whipping past them as the rocky plains blurred beneath. Karan kept pace on another skimmer, his spear strapped to his back. He looked energized, like this was exactly what he had been hoping for when he first brought Elias here. The canyon soon came into view, a jagged scar in the land, its walls dark and sheer. Heat shimmered above the ground, and the sound of distant lava flows echoed faintly. Jaka's team took positions along the upper edges, hidden among boulders. Below, the canyon floor was a winding path of black stone with sharp turns that would slow any skimmer. The ambush. The pirates arrived. As expected, 3 skimmers, each loaded with stolen crates and bound captives. Their armor was mismatched, scavenged from different sources, and their weapons were patched together from old tech. Elias watched from his vantage point as the first skimmer entered the narrowest section. Jaka gave a hand signal, and her warriors moved. Large stones, loosened earlier, tumbled down the walls, blocking the way forward and backward. The pirates swore and tried to turn, but Jaka's fighters leapt down from above, weapons ready. Elias grabbed the small energy pistol he carried for emergencies and slid down the rock face behind them. The fight was short but fierce. The pirates were aggressive, but they were caught off guard and had no room to maneuver. Jaka moved like a storm, her axes flashing in the heat light. Karan fought with sharp, precise thrusts of his spear, keeping enemies at a distance. Elias stayed, mobile, using cover and firing quick bursts to disable weapons rather than aiming to kill. He had no interest in unnecessary bloodshed, but he knew the pirates wouldn't hesitate if given the chance. Within minutes, the last pirate was disarmed and on his knees. The captives were freed, some limping but all alive. The interrogation Jaka stood over the captured pirate leader, a tall figure with pale, scarred skin and a jagged crest along his head. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The leader spat to the side. "Just work. Big payout for Zarketh goods. Easy score, we thought." "Who paid you?" Jaka pressed. He hesitated, then sneered. "Someone who wants your clan weak. Won't matter if you stop us. More will come." Jaka's tail lashed. "We will be ready." Elias stepped forward. "You ever raid human ships?" The pirate's eyes flicked to him, then away. "Not if we can help it. Too much trouble. Humans fight dirty." Elias allowed himself a thin smile. Smart policy. Back at the fortress by the time they returned with the captives and stolen goods, the sun was low, casting the volcanic plains in deep red light. The clan greeted them with cheers, but Elias noticed Jaka's expression stayed thoughtful. Later, in a quieter chamber, she spoke to him. "This attack was not random. Someone is testing our strength. The pirates were not skilled, but they had good timing." "You think there's someone behind them?" Elias said. She nodded. "A rival clan, perhaps, or an off-world trader who wants control of our routes." Karan leaned forward, his tone serious. "This is why we need allies who think differently. Zarketh warriors are strong, but we fight in the ways we have always fought. Humans see angles we miss." Elias crossed his arms. "You're both, assuming I'm staying long enough to get involved in your clan politics." Jaka's gaze was steady. "You already are involved. You stood with us at the canyon. You helped protect our people. That cannot be undone." Elias didn't have an argument for that. An offer. That evening, as the fortress quieted, Jaka approached Elias on the outer balcony. The air was cooler. Here, the lava rivers glowing faintly in the distance. "You have proven you can fight with us," she said. "You can also think beyond the battle. That is rare. My offer stands. Join my clan as my mate. You will have a place here, and your ship will have protection." Elias looked out at the horizon. "And if I say no?" Jaka's voice was calm. "Then you will still be honored as a friend of the Tavar. But you will leave knowing you turned away a strong alliance." He considered her words. Part of him wanted to keep moving, as he always had. Another part was curious, about the clan, about the culture, and, if he was honest, about Jaka herself. Before he could reply, Karan appeared in the doorway. "Scouts returned," he said. "They found signs of another raider camp, bigger than the last, near the lava delta." Jaka's eyes narrowed. "Then we move at first light." Elias sighed quietly. Whatever decision he made about Jaka's proposal, it looked like he wasn't leaving just yet. The quiet before the storm that night, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat in the small room, cleaning his pistol and thinking. He'd only been here a short time, but already the clan felt less like strangers and more like something else. Not family, not crew, but a group he could respect. He also couldn't ignore the feeling that these attacks were leading to something bigger. The pirates were probing, testing. Sooner or later, the real threat would show itself. Elias set the pistol aside and looked out the narrow window toward the dark horizon. He didn't know if he was ready to be anyone's mate, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let this clan be picked apart while he was here. When dawn came, the fortress was already awake. Warriors prepared for another march. Ovens baked fresh battle bread for the journey, and the air was filled with the sound of steel being sharpened. Elias joined Xhaka and Karan in the main hall. The map of the lava delta lay on the table, marked with scout reports. The sky over Varkor was the color of molten iron when the War Council gathered at dawn. The lava delta stretched across the southern plains, a maze of flowing rivers, jagged rock islands, and rising steam. It was dangerous terrain. One wrong step, and you could vanish under the glowing surface, but it also made a natural barrier. The pirates had chosen it for a reason. Elias stood at the stone map table beside Xhaka and Karan. The scouts' carved markers showed the raider camp. 3 skiffs anchored on a central island, crude barricades around their supplies, and lookouts posted on the higher rocks. "They are waiting," Xhaka said. "They know we will come." Elias studied the map. "If we rush straight in, they'll pick us off before we get close. And if they scatter, they can escape through the lava channels." "Then we block the channels," Karan suggested. "Not just block them," Elias said. "Slowly. We can herd them. Push them toward a place where they can't run, then strike all at once." Xhaka's golden eyes met his. "Explain." Elias pointed to a narrow section of the delta where 2 lava flows curved close together. "If we draw them here, they'll be trapped on a thin strip of rock with heat on both sides. No skimmer can pass. We can use the upper ridges to close the exit." Karan grinned. "A lava trap? I like it." Xhaka nodded. "We will split into 3 teams, 1 to draw them in, 1 to cut off the rear, and 1 to strike from above." She turned to Elias. "You will take the ridge team with me." Elias knew that meant 2 things. She trusted his judgment, and she wanted to see how he fought in the thickest part of the battle. Preparation. The fortress moved like a living thing as they prepared. Armor was strapped, weapons sharpened, and skimmers fueled. The air smelled of heated metal and fresh bread. In the kitchens, bakers worked alongside warriors, shaping small, dense loaves of battle bread. Xhaka moved among them, checking the ovens. She handed Elias a wrapped bundle. "For the ridge," she said, "eat when you can. You will need the strength." The bread was still warm, smelling faintly of herbs. Elias tucked it into his pack. "Do you always feed people before a fight?" "Always," she replied. "A hungry warrior is a dead warrior." Karan joined them, his spear slung across his back. "Ready?" Elias gave a short nod. "Let's go." The approach. They rode hard across the black plains, the heat intensifying as the lava channels came into view. The air shimmered, and the ground was warm even through their boots. Steam hissed from cracks in the rock, carrying the sharp scent of minerals. From their vantage point, Elias could see the pirate camp in the distance. The raiders moved between their skiffs and barricades, clearly expecting trouble. Xhaka signaled and the 3 teams split. The lure team moved wide, skimming, just close enough to draw the pirates' attention. A few well-aimed shots rang out, hitting the camp's edge. The pirates took the bait. Shouting, they scrambled to their skimmers and gave chase. The lure team retreated toward the narrow strip of rock between the lava flows, exactly as planned. Elias and Xhaka's ridge team moved into position above the choke point. The heat was intense here, sweat trickling down Elias's back, even in the shade of a jagged rock. The trap springs. The first pirate skimmer roared into the narrow passage. Its crew focused on the fleeing lure team ahead. Then the second, and the third. Jaka raised her arm. Now! From the ridge, the warriors released heavy chains weighted with hooks. They clattered down onto the passage, catching on the jagged edges of the rock. The pirates tried to swerve, but the chains tangled in their skimmer blades, grinding them to a halt. Before they could react, the rearguard team sealed the other end of the passage with a rock slide triggered by explosives. The pirates were trapped. Elias and Jaka descended the ridge, weapons ready. The heat from the nearby lava was almost unbearable, but the shouts of the raiders cut through the shimmering air. The battle, it was chaos the moment they hit the canyon floor. Jaka surged forward like a living wall of bronze, her plasma axes blazing with light. Every swing sent sparks flying as she met the pirates head-on. Elias stayed just behind her flank, picking off targets with quick, precise shots from his pistol. He moved constantly, using the rock formations for cover, keeping the pirates off balance. Karan fought like a whirlwind, his spear darting in and out with lethal precision. "Keep pushing them," he called. "The heat will weaken them faster than us." The pirates fought desperately, but the narrow ground gave them no room to maneuver. Some tried to climb the ridge walls, only to be knocked back by Zarketh, fighters above. One pirate charged Elias, swinging a jagged blade. Elias sidestepped, grabbed the attacker's arm, and used the momentum to throw him hard against the rocks. The man groaned and didn't get up. A dangerous turn, just as the fight seemed almost won. A deep rumble shook the ground. Elias glanced toward the nearest lava flow. A fresh surge of molten rock was spilling over the bank, threatening to flood part of the passage. "Jaka! We have to move them out!" Elias shouted. She saw it too. "Push them toward the rear. Wall. We take them alive or drive them over the edge, but we will not let the lava take our own." The warriors redoubled their efforts. The remaining pirates were forced back, their weapons falling one by one under the relentless assault. Some surrendered, hands raised. Others tried to fight to the last and were knocked down. The lava reached the edge of the battlefield, hissing, as it cooled against the rock, filling the air with a choking steam. Victory. When the last pirate was bound, Jaka gave the order to pull back to the ridge. The prisoners were marched out under guard, the stolen goods retrieved from their skiffs. At the top, Elias sank to one knee, catching his breath. The heat had sapped his strength more than he expected. He reached into his pack and broke off a piece of Jaka's bread. It was dense, chewy, and filled with a warmth that wasn't just from the oven. Jaka sat beside him, her armor streaked with soot, but her eyes bright. "You fought well," she said. "So did you," Elias replied, with a faint smile. "Though I'm not sure I'll ever get used to fighting next to lava," she chuckled low in her throat. "It keeps you focused." Karan joined them, grinning. And now the pirates will think twice before coming near Tavar land again. Back at the fortress, the return was met with cheers. The clan gathered. In the great hall, the ovens already working to bake a victory feast. The air was thick with the smell of roasting meat and spiced bread. Elias was given a seat of honor beside Jaka. Platters of food passed from hand to hand, mugs were raised, and songs were sung in the Zarketh language. At one point, an elder stood and addressed the hall. "This human has fought for us, bled for us, and helped bring victory. Whether he joins our clan or not, he is one of us tonight." The cheer that followed was loud enough to shake the stone walls. A private conversation later, when the hall had quieted, Jaka found Elias on the balcony overlooking the lava rivers. The night air was cooler, the horizon glowing faintly. "You see now," she said, "why a mate must be more than just a companion. They must be someone who stands in the heat beside you, someone who will face the fire without stepping back. Elias leaned on the stone railing. You mean someone like me? Her gaze was steady. Yes. I will not ask you again tonight, but soon. You must decide. Elias didn't answer right away. He watched the slow flow of the lava below, thinking about the fight, the clan, and the strange pull he felt toward this place. He had come to Argent Spire Station to drop off cargo. Somehow he had ended up in a war, and in the middle of a proposal unlike anything he had ever imagined, and he wasn't sure he wanted to leave. The Zarketh capital city had not been this lively in years. Bright banners hung from high towers, each painted in deep red and gold, the colors of victory. The main square bustled with activity. Warriors in armor clapped each other's shoulders, merchants sold sweet-smelling bread from long wooden trays, and children played a noisy game of chasing each other around the fountains. The air was warm with the smell of roasting meat and fresh baking. Captain Elias Vance stood near, the edge of the crowd, still wearing the slightly dented jacket he had fought in. His freighter, Wayfarer's Pride, was docked safely at the city's main port, her hull patched after the battle with the pirate armada. For a man used to quiet space lanes and long hours of solitude in the cockpit, the celebration felt overwhelming. Every few steps, someone stopped him to shake his hand or slap his shoulder, speaking in a mix of Zarketh language and broken Galactic common. He didn't understand every word, but the gratitude in their faces was unmistakable. Captain! He turned to see Karan pushing through the crowd. The young warrior looked unusually proud, chest armor polished to a shine, battle-scarred tail swishing behind him. In his hands, he carried a long wooden box. You are summoned to the council hall, Karan said, a wide grin showing the sharp edges of his teeth. It is time. Elias raised an eyebrow. Time for what? More victory speeches? Karan's eyes glimmered with mischief. No, the final part of the proposal. Elias groaned inwardly. He had almost forgotten, that all of this had begun with Karan's strange question about having a mate. In the days since the battle, he had avoided giving any clear answer to Jaka's offer. He wasn't sure if it was polite hesitation or pure confusion. Still, he followed Karan through the twisting streets toward the tall, stone-like council hall. The building's great doors stood open, sunlight spilling across the polished floor. Inside, the council gathering. Inside, the great chamber was filled. The council members, tall, armored elders with crests painted in bright colors, sat in a curved line at the far end. Beside them stood Jaka herself, in ceremonial armor polished to a mirror sheen. In one hand, she held a wide, flat loaf of golden bread, still steaming. In the other, she held a long, curved knife with an ivory handle. Elias froze at the sight. The hall went quiet. One of the elders rose and spoke in deep, slow common. Captain Elias Vance of Earth, you have fought beside our warriors. You have brought your knowledge to our fleet. You have defended our people at great risk to yourself. You have passed the trials of strength, courage, and loyalty. The elder gestured toward Jaka. Our clan leader now offers you the bread knife. In our tradition, this is the symbol of union between warriors, a promise to share food and protection for all days ahead. Jaka stepped forward, eyes calm but unblinking. You fought well, human. You endured my tests. You bled with my people. You have earned the right to stand beside me, if you choose. The hall was utterly silent. Elias could feel dozens of eyes watching him, waiting. Decision time. He let out a slow breath. Jaka, you're a remarkable woman. I didn't come here looking for anything like this. I was just delivering cargo. He gave a small, crooked smile. And now I'm standing in front of a whole council with a marriage knife pointed at me. A few warriors chuckled softly. Elias glanced at the bread in her hand. He remembered the first time he'd tasted it after their sparring match, warm, dense, full of strange spices that seemed to fuel energy into his muscles. He remembered her leading the defense at the settlement, never faltering, even as the ground shook from weapons fire. He had met many people in his travels, but very few like her. Someone who could fight with the skill of a veteran soldier. And then, without missing a beat, feed an entire army with her own 2 hands. Finally, he nodded. "All right, I'll accept, on one condition." The crowd stirred with interest. "I keep my freighter," Elias said. "I'm a pilot. I can't stay in one place forever, but I'll make this a dual-world partnership. I'll live here part of the time, and the rest I'll keep trading and flying. That way, I bring back supplies and news from far systems." Jaka's expression didn't change, but her eyes glinted. "Agreed. You will have a place in my clan, and the stars as your hunting ground." She handed him the bread knife. The moment his fingers closed around it, the hall erupted in loud, rhythmic drumming from the warriors' tails striking the floor. The council members stood, giving their approval. A feast to remember. The celebration that followed made the earlier one seem small. The great square became an open-air feast hall. Long tables were covered with roasted game, bright fruits from distant valleys, and endless baskets of Jaka's famous bread. Musicians played deep, rolling notes on drum-like instruments, and the younger warriors performed mock duels for entertainment. Elias found himself seated beside Jaka at the head table. Every so often, someone would stop to present them with a gift, a carved stone charm, a polished scale, a small bag of rare spices. Karan leaned over from the other side. "I told you she was the best choice, human. Now you are part of the strongest family unit in the galaxy." Elias smirked. "And here I thought you were just trying to get rid of me by throwing me at your mother." Karan grinned. "If you were weak, she would have thrown you out herself." As the night deepened, a warm glow of firelight filled the square. Children darted around with little flags, and the warriors drank a strong, smoky brew that Elias decided to avoid after one cautious sip. Life between stars and stone weeks passed quickly. Elias stayed longer than planned, helping repair the settlements, defenses, and upgrading the port's docking systems. The Wayfarer's Pride became a familiar sight to the Zarketh people, sometimes docked, sometimes vanishing into the black of space. When he did travel, Elias carried Jaka's bread to distant stations, trading it for rare goods and news from across the sectors. It became something of a legend among traders, battle bread from the warrior baker of Zarketh. On the homeworld, he found himself slowly adapting to the rhythms of the clan. Morning training in the sparring yards, evenings in the kitchen with Jaka, helping knead dough while she told stories of old campaigns. She laughed at his clumsy first attempts, but never let him stop trying. Karan often joined them, eager to hear tales from Elias's journeys. He still introduced him to newcomers as "my human stepfather," which Elias pretended to protest, but secretly found amusing. The quiet moment one quiet evening, Elias stood on the high balcony of the clan hall. The volcanic horizon glowed with the light of molten rivers in the distance. Jaka stepped beside him, carrying 2 mugs of warm spice drink. "You still think this is strange?" she asked. Elias sipped, the flavor rich and smoky. "A little," he admitted. "But I've learned something in my travels. The best things usually start with something unexpected." Jaka nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Then, perhaps the stars sent you here for a reason?" They stood in silence for a long while, listening to the wind and the distant hum of the city below. A new chapter. Months later, the Wayfarer's Pride launched from the Zarketh homeworld once again. In the cargo hold were crates of trade goods, repair parts for the outlying colonies, and a fresh supply of Jaka's bread, wrapped carefully to last the long journey. Elias sat in the pilot's seat, the bread knife mounted on the wall, beside him. It was more than a symbol now. It was a reminder that no matter how far he traveled, he had a place to return to. A home in two worlds. As the stars stretched into lines and the freighter slipped into faster-than-light travel, Elias smiled to himself. He had left Earth long ago thinking the galaxy was just ports and contracts, routes and credits. Now it was something far richer. A place where a warrior baker could win his respect, where battles could be fought with both blades and bread, and where a strange question on a quiet trade station could lead to a life he'd never imagined. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could already hear Karan's voice when he returned. "See? I told you my mother was perfect." And this time, Elias wouldn't argue.